My good friend and a very visionary entrepreneur, Makand Adhikari, MD of Governance Now, Sanket Akerkar, MD Microsoft India, Anurag Batra, Joint MD Governance Now, and B.V. Rao, Editor Governance Now. Well, first of all, I consider it a distinct privilege to be here with you in the launch of this wonderful site. I just wish that it's not called Gov 2.0 because that seems to connect government with zero, which is not the idea, I hope. It should be called Gov 2.0 because otherwise it gives the wrong signal. The very site gives the wrong signal. So I would suggest that instead of calling it zero, you call it Gov 2.0. If you really look 10 years from now, 20 years from now, what will be the nature of governance? How will services be provided? Well, surely e-governance is the way forward. E-commerce is the way forward. And sites like these, which you call a social media site, will play a very important role. And you've seen some of the power of the media. In Tunisia, you saw it in Egypt, in Libya. And in a sense, this is transformational because the power of the media through platforms like this bring people close to each other and remove distance. The physical distance of people is removed through these sites. So social groups living far away from each other can come on a common site and express their views and therefore drive agendas which then will pressurize governments and administrations to move forward on particular issues. And therefore I think it's really time that this got started and launched, so I congratulate the organizers for having launched Gov 2.0. I do believe that the vehicle that you have launched today is transformational because so far sites like these, especially in the context of e-commerce, have been transactional. And this is how government has been thinking about how do you provide service to the people? How do you through these sites sell goods in the market? How do you reach people to encourage them to buy a particular product? So far these sites have been used as a transactional platform. But we need to move from the transactional to the transformational. And that's really the challenge that sites like these will pose in the years to come. Because for a transformational platform, you need much more than a vendor and a vendee. You need a whole collaborative effort being taken forward in a mature way. We have seen, unfortunately, the power of the media in the last 6 months or so, seeking to perform a transformational role, but in the absence of a balance. And this is really the danger of sites like these. Because what happens in the process is that all kinds of opinions get both elicited and taken forward without the necessary wherewithal before that opinion is put on the platform. And there is a great danger because this, I believe, is part of freedom of speech. Because, and I have been saying this in other platforms as well, that the right to information is central to freedom of speech. And in a sense, this country and other countries have not really deliberated on this issue. Because how do you exercise your right to free speech in the absence of information? So I believe that any democracy which wants to move forward, and any country which believes in the transformational role that is necessary for sites like these, must accept the principle that information is at the heart of freedom of speech. And therefore, the free flow of information should be part of the fundamental right to freedom of speech. This is very important because that allows people to inform others sitting thousands of miles away without the kind of censorship that establishments and governments tend to impose. Freedom of speech, of course, has certain caveats. You can't destroy a person's reputation. You can't commit contempt of court. You can't do things which are against national security. Now, how do we ensure that a platform like this, which is a social media platform, accepts the constraints that are inherent in freedom of speech? And we've seen this happening on through our television studios nowadays. There's no regard for defamation. You can, with one sentence, destroy the reputation of a person. There is no recourse. There's no recourse to a court of law. So it's like instant coffee. You just have it, and you have no choice. And nobody waits for 10, 15 years to a court of law to seek redressal on defamation when your reputation gets destroyed at the very instant when statements are made on television. And I am afraid that the same kind of license will be exercised on a social media platform. And so I don't support governmental interference and governmental guidelines on things like this, but I think there has to be a societal check. Society, when it exercises, the social media, when this exercises this right, must ensure that the information put on the site before it's put on the site, is properly digested. And I'm afraid that's not going to happen. So whereas it's a great platform for a positive transformational role, it is also a platform that is subject to misuse. And I want to put it on the table. This is really one of the problems that I am really very concerned with as we move forward as a democracy. Because I believe that agendas are taken over by social groups, and they are put forward as if they are the agendas of the nation. So that's one issue that I wanted to put on the table. The second issue is that this is essentially a middle-class movement. This is essentially a movement which is available to those who have access and those who have the power of access. Which means that it being essentially a middle-class platform, it is not inclusive. So when you talk about inclusive agendas, I think the very nature of the platform is not inclusive. How then do you make it inclusive? And I think there again we have to play a very important role. That is, government has to play a very important role. And the next couple of years, 2-3 years from now, we will hopefully be connecting every village, every taluka with fiber optics. And then connect every home through wireless broadband, so that information flows from any part of India to the home of any citizen anywhere in India. That's what we are going to do. Government must be a recipient of information that the government is not able, because of distance or other constraints, not able to perceive and not able to fully appreciate. And the only way that can be done is through sites like these. So and this is really our national commitment, because we believe that the real transformational role, away from the transactional to the transformational, will only take place when we actually connect every home in India, be it in the tribal areas, be it in the northeast, be it in Jammu and Kashmir, be it in the remote villages of this country. Because then we'll realize what the problems on the ground are. Just the other day, and it's very interesting that you mentioned Postal Department, which also is part of Ministry for Communications and IT. I launched the e-Post day before yesterday. The e-Post platform is a very interesting platform. Remember, the first money order in this country was sent way back in 1880 through a paper transaction. And today, day before yesterday, we converted that into a transaction through the net. So now a migrant from Bihar in Mumbai will be able to use, if he has a bank account, or even if he doesn't, if his family has a bank account, a 10-rupee bank account, will be able to send a money order from Mumbai to the remotest village where his family lives, to ensure that school fees are paid in time. This is the transformational role that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, I mean, of course, when an unfortunate incident will take place in any part of the urban city, everybody will get onto the social platform and drive an agenda. I'm really not talking about those kind of platforms. I'm talking about the real transformational role that we need actually to change the way India works and India lives. What we are going to do in the process in the years to come, and this is not going to be too many years from now, we're going to make sure that this platform, through e-Post, becomes a tool for empowerment. And how will that happen? Let me just share that with you. You could actually get financing from banks through e-Post. An agricultural in a remote area can get financing from banks through e-Post. You would be able to sell your wares in the market without going to the market. Because imagine a craftsman, or imagine a collection of craftspersons